Hello and welcome. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's lunchtime webinar on mailings and automation in CiviCRM. To begin with some quick introductions. So for those that don't know me, I'm Tom. I'm one of the account managers at Circle. Shortly, we'll have Anil, our development team lead, who will be conducting the demo, and then we'll round things off with Dave, our director, who will be answering a few of your questions at the end. For the demo, we'll be using our new Civi360 demo site. So Civi360 is a SaaS version of CiviCRM built for the needs of the third sector organizations. It's basically a fully managed cloud-based version of CiviCRM. We've set it up with roles, reports, and features designed to address third sector specific challenges. You can sign up for news about Civi360 using the links that you should have on your screen. Sorry. Yeah, and you can try the demo online for yourself. If you want any more information or have any questions, do get in touch. So lastly, we've got a little bit of housekeeping. So if you'd like to ask a question, you can click on the icon on the lower right of your screen. We'll try and answer some of these questions at the end, and anything we don't get to cover, we'll send out a resource with the recorded session and some answers there as well. As we know, email remains one of the most effective tools to increase engagement for third sector organizations. With it, you can provide a direct and personal connection with your supporters. Unlike social media, the cost to impact ratio of mailings is particularly powerful, and it helps you to nurture your relationships with your contacts. So hopefully you can increase engagement with supporters, which helps achieve your goals. You can see who's opening, clicking, and engaging, so it means your strategy isn't guesswork. You can refine, learn, and keep on improving. Email also scales with your needs, so whether you're sending a targeted message to a volunteer group or running an email campaign to thousands, the same tools adapt seamlessly. So automation is about making better use of the tools you already have. So setting up automated mailings in Civi helps you to reduce repetitive manual work, like sending confirmations, reminders, or follow-up emails. Your messages go out at the right time every time, so hopefully that helps reduce potential errors, helps reduce human error, just forgetting to do something and missing that, and it gives supporters a more reliable experience. Because it's within CiviCRM, all of your communications are connected to the rest of your data, so that's great for reporting and insight. So hopefully overall it cuts down on your admin, frees up your time and energy to focus on other things, and you can save money on expensive email automation subscriptions. Now I will hand over to Anil, and he will take over presenting and give you a bit of a demo. Anil.
Thank you, Tom. Welcome, everybody. My name's Anil. I'm the development team lead here at Circle, and I'll be covering today's webinar on emails and automation. The first area I'd like to cover is segmenting your contacts and creating your targeted audiences. Using the groups feature in CiviCRM. Groups comes in two different flavors. We've got static groups and we've got what we call smart groups. Static groups are groups that are manually created and contacts are added in manually by yourselves in CiviCRM backend, or they sign up via a form. So for example, a newsletter sign up and they get added into the static group. And they remain in the group unless you manually remove them from CiviCRM backend, or the recipient themselves, if sent a mailing via that group, they decide to unsubscribe, only then they get removed from the group. Whereas a smart group is a group which is based on a particular set of search criteria. A smart group is created when you've conducted a search and then you save it as a smart group. And anybody who meets that criteria automatically fall into that group. And if things change on that contact record, they fall out of that criteria, then they fall out of that group. I'm going to create both a static group and a smart group, just for your reference. So to create a group, we go to contacts and manage groups. And I'm going to add a new group called staff as a static group. And I'm going to select mailing list. For visibility for this group, I'm going to leave it as user and user admin only, because it's going to be used for internal purposes only. But you would select public pages if it was, for example, a newsletter group. So I've gone ahead and created a manual static group, and you would only go into that group if we manually add someone. So I'm just going to go to a contact record, select groups, and add this contact to the staff group. They are now part of the static staff group, and they can only be removed by me physically moving them here, or if an email is sent via the system and they unsubscribe, they will be removed. Otherwise, all contacts remain static in the static group. The other type of group, as I mentioned, is a smart group. It's a really powerful feature in Civi, and you can always target the right audience. So the example I'm going to use is I want to send weekly newsletters or monthly newsletters to all of my current members. So other people who are on the database, I don't want them to receive an email, or members who have not renewed, who have expired or lapsed, they shouldn't be receiving these emails either. So my search criteria is based on memberships and membership statuses. So I'm going to keep it simple, and I want to create a smart group based on membership status, so it's equal to new, current, or grace. And I search. That returns 114 records. I'm going to select all 114, and from the actions drop down, I'm going to select the option create smart group, give it a sensible name, and I'm also going to select mailing list, and I'm going to save that smart group. So that's my smart group created. To make sure it's working as expected, I've got a member record here. So if I go to membership, they've got a membership and the status is new. So this contact should fall under that criteria. So if I go to groups and expand smart groups, we can see they fall under criteria and they're part of the smart group. So I've got my audience now. So tomorrow, if 2 new members decide to join the organization and they meet that criteria, they'll automatically fall into that smart group. And if members decide not to renew and their status changes from current or grace to lapsed or expired, they no longer meet that criteria and they'll automatically fall out of that group. So that's groups, static, and smart groups. I'm going to move on to a feature in CiviCRM called tokens. If you're not familiar with that terminology, tokens are similar to what you find in other platforms called mail merge. Basically, you can enter values in communication, and when the recipient receives this communication, those values are pre-populated with values from CiviCRM. I'm just going to navigate to the core message templates functionality in Civi and add a message template. So within these templates, you can use tokens. So a use case scenario would be, instead of using your email greeting to say dear supporter or dear member, we can greet them with more personalized things by using tokens. So for example, we could use dear first name, and we can use other tokens from the system. For example, we could use things like birth date. We can use values from addresses. So you might want to use postal address or postal code. I've created a message template on this demo site called tokens, just to show you what other options tokens are available. So on this one here, we can see we've got first name, as mentioned. We can use things like current employer, address fields, birth date we've already seen. If I go to a contact record, we can also use tokens from custom fields. So if I go back to a contact record, on our demo site here, we've got a custom data set called member directory details. We've got a field in here called bio, and that's also available as a token. So it's not just the core Civi fields, you can use your custom fields as tokens as well. If I go back to that contact record, and from the actions drop down, print merge a document and use that tokens template. And if I click on download document, this will produce a PDF, and hopefully we'll have populated all those tokens from that contact record. So we've got the first name token, current employer, address, birthday, and everything else. So the reason I've used a PDF here is because our demo site doesn't send emails, and this tokens functionality is available not just with mailings, but it's available in generation of PDFs. It can be used in receipts, and it can also be used in schedule reminders, which is a functionality I will be covering shortly. So that's the powerful use of tokens. Next area is going to be about an extension called Mosaico. Mosaico offers the ability for anyone to create nice looking responsive email templates without having any coding or HTML knowledge. So we've got some examples on Mosaico templates. One example is this one for membership organizations. We've got different background colors, so we can see red, a bit of white, some gray in there, use of some different size images. Another example we've got here is similar type of background, but use of larger images, some call to action buttons, some smaller images. But this is what you can do from Mosaico without having any sort of knowledge, and they will work really well on all sorts of devices. So what I wanted to cover was 10 useful features when using Mosaico. And the first one, obviously, sending emails, images are very, very important. So we can add images quite easily using a number of methods. So I'm just going to drag this new image block into this template. So we can upload an image using our computer. We can drag and drop an image from our computer straight into the template. Or if you've used images in Mosaico previously, the system creates a gallery. Then we can use images that have been used in the past and we can drag them in. Feature number 2, it'd be nice if you could link images to URLs, and with Mosaico you can do that quite easily. So click on the block wherever your image has been uploaded, and we got an option here to add a link. Please note that when adding URLs or links, prefixes need to be added, otherwise you won't be able to save the template. We've also got an option to add alternative text, which is also recommended to use where possible. Feature number 3 is around formatting of text. So we've got a block here with which is quite text heavy, and if we click on it, we've got all sorts of options from making the text bold, italic. We've got options to change the text color, background color, enter horizontal lines, enter bullet lists, all sorts of different formatting options. We can, of course, use tokens in Mosaico templates, as I just covered. We can also add links, and you also got the option to view and modify the source code of that particular text block. And if that's not enough, we can click on style, and we've got some further options to change the font, size, line height. So a few more options there. So you should be able to achieve what you want when it comes to text. Feature number 5 is the control of background colors. So this particular block here, we can see we've got gray background in the center, and we've got white background on the outer. So if I click on style, so for each block in the Mosaico template, we've got control over the background color, which is the center, and the external background, which is the left and the right of the template. So if I change the gray to, say, let's white, and the external to red, we can do that for each individual block and design it as you see fit. Feature number 6, for certain blocks, we can rotate the image's position from left to right and vice versa. So this particular one, you might want to rotate the image and have it on the right. So we click on the block, and under content, we've got this image position. So we can move it from left to right and right to left. We can also change the image size from medium to small, or perhaps big, or even large. So we've got various options around certain blocks. We've got the option to reorder blocks. So let's say you've created this block and decided you wanted it further up or further down. When you click on a block, you've got a few options. So you can move it up one, or we can move it down one, or we can hold and drag it to wherever you like it to go. So we can reorder blocks up, down, or drag it wherever you like. Feature number 8, a really useful one, we can duplicate blocks. So again, when you're in an area, we've got an option here you can click on which will duplicate a block. So if you decide this is a useful one, it will save a lot of time. We can click on that and obviously change the image and text as desired. Feature number 9, social media icons. Everybody likes a few social media icons in their emails. So we click on that block. We've got a number of styles or versions, from simple gray ones to colorful ones, circles, squares, etc. So we can choose the desired ones. We can have big icons, or you can have small icons. And there's about a dozen or so different social media platforms. If you decide to use a particular one, you need to enter the corresponding URL, again using the prefix HTTPS. Final 10th feature in Mosaico is the ability to view how this mailing might look on different devices. There's an icon that should appear at the top there, and the reason we can't see it on my screen is because I'm using a smaller screen. So if you use a bigger screen, you will see that. But for this demo, I'm going to decrease the size of my screen so that icon appears. So we can see that icon there, which shows you the live preview. And if I click on that, we get another pane on the right-hand side. And we can see how this will potentially look on a smartphone, a tablet, and of course, a desktop. Once again, if you're wondering or puzzled why you can't see that icon, it's probably because you're using a smaller screen and that icon is hidden. So I'm going to go back to my normal size. So that was Mosaico, and that is an extension available. If you're wondering why you can't see that in your CiviCRM environment, because it's an add-on. Moving on to the actual sending of emails via Civi. So there's a number of methods you can use, and I'm going to cover 2. One of them is, if you weren't aware, you can send emails individually to a contact record that exists in your system. And you might be thinking, I can easily just use Outlook to send an email to a member, or Gmail, or whatever email client you're using, which is not a problem. You know, you can continue to do so. But it might be useful if that communication is important, because if you send the email from Civi, it'll get recorded as an interaction. You'll be able to refer back to it in the future. And more importantly, your colleagues can also see that interaction. So from Civi, if you navigate to the contact record you wish to send an email to, we can either click on the email address and send an email from there, or from the actions drop down, there's an option called send an email. Obviously, enter a subject and something in the body field and click send email. That will fire out an email, and it will include an activity that's been recorded automatically of type email. When we view this activity, we can see who sent the email, when it was sent, and of course, the details of the email. And sending via Civi, there's another advantage. So for example, if this contact had a privacy preference of not being emailed, and you intended to email them, we cannot send an email. The emails are no longer hyperlinked. We've got some privacy icons, and from the actions drop down, we haven't got the option to send an email. So that's another reason to be able to send from Civi. So that was a single individual email. And now, making use of the Civi mail component and using Mosaico, I'm going to send a bulk email via the system by navigating to Mailings and New Mailing. We need to give it a mailing name, and this is for internal purposes only. So let's call it September newsletter. You've got an option to select where the email is going to be sent from, which email address. We need to select your target audience group. We created a smart group called current members, and that's going to be my target audience. If you're wondering why you can't see your group in this list, it could potentially be because the mailing list checkbox wasn't ticked when you created that that group. So I'm going to select current members. The system will indicate how many recipients, and if you recall, when I created the smart group, there was 114 contacts. 2 of those contacts probably have privacy preferences of do not emailing, so that's why it's a couple less. We need to give the email a subject line. This is what the recipients will receive. So make sure you put something sensible, and we can use tokens in the subject line here as well. If we continue to the next screen, we can either create a new Mosaico template from scratch by using a base template, but we know we've already got some templates, and I'm going to use the one that I modified a few moments ago. So we're on that screen again, which gives you the ability to tweak, modify it from here. If you're happy with it, we can proceed to test. And on this screen here, we can see how it's going to look potentially to recipients. And we've also got a nice feature here to be able to test not only to yourself. So this email address has been pre-populated because I'm logged in, but we've also got an ability here to send to another group. And this is where the staff static group would be useful. So you can send out this email not only to yourself. You could have been working on this mailing, for quite a long time and miss obvious typos or the image doesn't look right. But if you send it to staff, your colleagues can look at it on different devices. They can click on links. They can make sure the images are correct ones, etc. And after that, we can close and we can save draft. And we can wait until you get feedback from your colleagues. And once you're confident that everything looks great, we can come back and we can move on to the next stage. In the next stage, we've got some advanced mailing options, which allow you to upload files as attachments if you would like to send it. We've got some options about responses. So if people decide to opt out, what message should they receive via email? We've got some tracking options. Civi Mail has some reports available. So when you send a bulk email, you can see who clicked on the email, who opened it, and which particular links they clicked on. And the last one is publication. And you should really think about this when sending out mailings, because if you leave it as public pages, and sometimes you see that token in your mailings about viewing browser. So if you click on that, that's publicly available to everyone. So if you're sending emails to targeted audiences or for internal purposes, make sure it's user and user admin is selected. Otherwise, some people will be able to access the mailing using the URL that Civi provides. So be careful when it comes to publication. And the last feature around Civi Mail is you can send it immediately, or you can send it at some point in the future. So let's say your monthly newsletter goes out on the last day of the month. We can schedule that in on the 30th of September at a particular time and not worry about it. And when that date and time approaches, that email will be sent out to the audience. So that's sending of email via Civi. Moving on to emails, but more automation. We're going to cover 2 areas. One is scheduled reminders. I'm going to touch firstly on events and scheduled reminders. So when creating events or managing events, there's a tab available called schedule reminders. So for this particular one, we've got a schedule reminder to thank people who have attended for this event 3 days after the event date for everybody who's attended. If I click on edit, we can see the config for this schedule reminder. So we've got a title, used for events, used for only this particular event, and only send out the email where participant status equals attended. So if somebody didn't show up or they cancelled, then that email wouldn't go out to them. So it would only go out to those that have been flagged as attended. And we're telling the system to send out an email 3 days after the event date and to the role attendee. And then we scroll further down, we've got an option to enter the email content. And again, we can use tokens here. So anybody who meets that criteria, the system will send out an email 3 days after if you've attended a particular event. So that's one example of automation using schedule reminders. And schedule reminders are not just for events. They can be used across all components, all entities where there's a date available. So if I go to the main schedule reminder screen, which can be found under Administer, Communications, Schedule Reminders, I'll show you a couple more examples. So we've got an example here where we're taking advantage of the core birth date field. And this schedule reminder sends out an email based on the birth date on each anniversary 1 day before the birth date, and only limited to members. So this email goes out to say happy birthday to anybody who's got a birthday 1 day before, and only if they're a member. And again, we've got the template at the bottom, and that's a bit of automation again based on the birth date field. One final example is around membership. So we can send out automation based on membership dates. So this particular one sends out an email for membership types bronze, silver, gold, and platinum 4 weeks before membership expiry date, which is a gentle reminder just to say your membership is about to expire, and it's got a convenient link for them to be able to renew. So that's schedule reminders, and remember that can be used where there's a date field. So for activities, custom date fields, membership, as we've just seen. So quite a powerful feature there for automation. One final one, if schedule reminders, you can't achieve what you want, there's another extension available called CiviRules. And CiviRules is really, really powerful and can do all sorts of things based on any values. So you can trigger actions based on if gender is this, or if age is greater than that, or if you're in a particular location, and then do something. So the use case scenario I've got for today's demo is if you accept donations, send out a particular email if the value of the donation is greater than £50, and send out a different email if the value of the contribution is less than £50. So under Administer, CiviRules, if I manage rules, I've got 2 rules set up here. So the first one, the label is donation greater or equal than £50. And if I click on edit, we've got the trigger. So the trigger is when the contribution is added. I've got some conditions here. So only trigger these actions if the financial type is equal to a donation, and if the amount is greater or equal than £50, and if the status of the contribution is completed. And one final one, if it's the first contribution. Because if somebody's donating on a regular basis, I'm sure they get pretty annoyed if you're sending the same email. So that's another condition there, to only send it for the first time. And then CiviRules allows you to do multiple actions. And the actions for this particular rule is send out an email. And if I edit that, we can control where it's coming from, and we can use the message templates functionality. So I've selected a message templates from Core Civi to say select the template which should go out if you've paid more than £50. And I've also assigned it other actions to give it a tag called major donor when this action is being triggered, and also add them to a group. And at the bottom of the screen, we can see the trigger history. So we can see when this action was triggered and for which contact. And if I go back to CiviRules, we've got a similar one with less actions, but the opposite, basically less than £50, then trigger an email, but I haven't said put them in a group or give them a tag. So if I go to a contact record, so no contributions. If I add a contribution of type donation, I'm going to make sure it's greater than £100 and save. If I go on activities, we can see the contribution, which is expected, but now we see an activity of type email, which has been triggered because they met the criteria. And this is the email I expected to send out because they donated greater than £50. If I go back to the Civi rule and an option called history of rules, we can see the rule donation greater or equal to £50 was triggered for this particular contact record. So that was CiviRules, another extension which is available for advanced automation rules using not just emails, but for different actions as well. And that concludes my part on the demo. I'll hand over to Dave for some of the questions you may have. Thank you.
Amazing, thanks for that, Anil. Yeah, hopefully there's lots of stuff there that people have found useful and can take away. So now we have Dave, who's our director. We've got a few questions that we had from before presentation. If you do have any questions you want to add, we might not get to them. We've got about 10 minutes. But if you do want to ask them, click the little kind of waffle icon on the bottom right, and then you can ask some questions there. If we don't get to them now, we'll use them in the resource we send out in a few days. So, Dave, hi, Dave.
Hi, Tom, and thanks, Anil.
So I'll just go from the top. So the first one, and hopefully there's some stuff in the presentation that fits into this, but we can maybe go into it a bit more, is how do we make newsletters more engaging? So what would be your thoughts, Dave?
Well, I mean, this is quite a difficult one. I can't really speak to everybody's different audiences, but I think one of the things is to make sure that the content you include in those newsletters is appropriate, to keep the kind of styling right for your brand and your audience, and yeah, to make sure that you personalize it a bit. So if you're sending out lots and lots of information, you might want to think about can you split it into groups of people who are more interested in one set of things and people who are interested in another set of things, and make those separate newsletters or mailings that go out.
Cool. Yeah, I think using some of the tips from Anil to spend a bit of time and really get your branding on the templates right is really worth doing, because in the long run it will save you loads of time.
And thinking about those audiences as well, like who you're putting into those groups, or how you're setting those kind of those smart groups up so that they're properly organized.
Cool. Okay, so the next question I think can kind of be taken one of two ways. It's how can I make emails faster? So I suppose there's the faster to create, get them out, yes, and then there's faster to download and run and that sort of thing. I mean,
yes, it's kind of two questions, isn't it, really? How do you make them faster to build is by doing what we were looking at there with having nice templates. I mean, I think what we've found with our newsletters that go out is, just having a really consistent structure makes it very easy to build those each time. So there's always a headline, there's always a section one, which is the main thing you want to say, and then having maybe two separate other things. And each of those have got an image, like Anil had in his example there. You've just got to think, what's the image that goes in? What are the words that go in that section? and you can build that offline in a Word document or in a Google document or whatever, and then you're just copying and pasting those bits in. So I think that's about speeding up the production. If you want to think about speeding up delivery, then maybe some technical things, but you also want to think about whether you really want to speed up delivery, whether you want to deliver 10,000 emails in one go. Actually, sometimes people want to slow down the delivery because they don't want 10,000 people all arriving on their website in one day, following links for those. So I think that second one about making it arrive faster. You need to think about why you're doing it. I know a few years ago when we had an example of someone who wanted to deliver, it was about 250,000 emails and have them arrive within half an hour. And for that, we had to say, well, your server isn't really going to cope with that, and so pipe it out through a mail delivery partner like SendGrid or
Sparkpost is another one that works.
Yeah. That can also help.
So it's just going back to the template point as well. I think what I've found really useful is where you've got your different sections, just bullet point out the sort of things you should mention. Because I think the hardest thing when you're doing a newsletter, if you go from nothing, is just thinking like, what am I actually going to say? So just having bullet points for each section of the sort of thing you should say to prompt you into doing it. It's not necessarily Civi related, but I found that really helpful.
Yeah, and actually one of the things that we've found is works well is not saying too much. Having those sections quite short, but then linking out to more detail, because that also helps. I think with engagement, it's like the first thing. If your mail is 3 pages long, people will probably slow down and stop reading. But if you give them, 3 things, it's like actually the one they want to read, they can go investigate in more detail.
So it lets you know what's working as well. If you've got kind of a hook to then get them onto your site, and 1 week that hook gets no one clicking on it, then maybe you need to rethink how you're doing your hook. So if you're, don't put all the information in your newsletter, and you can then see what works and then kind of adjust things as you go along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is quite a long question, so I'll go from the top. Can Civi help with doing more complex sequential email journeys and reporting? If not, are there any CiviCRM extensions you recommend specifically designed for creating sequential email journeys and donor stewardship campaigns? So I suppose some of that is covered from the presentation. So CiviRules is going to be a big one for setting up some of that automation.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, if you're talking about kind of sequential emails, I mean, if we think about the first part that Neil was looking at, the kind of scheduled reminders, then you can have a series of mails that go out following a particular event, like event registration or membership renewal or whatever it is, and you can have things that go out 1 week before, 1 day before, 1 week after, 1 month after, and a series of mails like that. Those are all coming off one trigger in CiviCRM. What you can also do though is, and I think the reporting part is useful here. I think it's always useful to look at your reporting after you've sent a mail. How many people opened, how many people clicked on things. And if you look at the screen in the reporting, it shows you how many people have clicked on something. You could then add all of those people to a group. There's a link on that screen that allows you to add all the people who opened this email, add them to a group, and then you can do things with that. So you can add to an engagement score. You can use that group for a subsequent mailing. So you can send your second mail in that series to a more targeted group, only the people who really engaged in something in the first place. And you can do things like that. And obviously you can then use rules to trigger some of those subsequent things. If they clicked on this link and they've given a donation of more than £50 and they're in this particular geographical location, they get referred. So things like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think sometimes if I've been on mailing lists and you start getting things about, I don't know, a specific event or something that's very niche, and they keep sending them, that's the sort of thing that makes me unsubscribe. So if you can filter down and just go for the people who are engaged, that could be really useful to keep your mailing lists.
Yeah, I think that first question is really important, the kind of, keeping engagement, because if, like you say, if you get a load of stuff that isn't really relevant to you, you start to turn off and go, no, I don't want this anymore. So I think it's better to have 3 smaller lists of more engaged people around different topics than one big list where you go, oh, no, everyone can read everything. There's also, I mean, that was talking about kind of, more complex journeys. There's, just as a complete aside, there's quite a cool extension which does not do email, but it does SMS, and in that you can construct these really branched conversations. So you can start off with something that has, do you like cats or dogs? And if you say, I like dogs, then you can ask one set of questions. And if you say, you like cats, you ask a separate set of questions. So you can have that conversation going in different directions. And that also can update data fields on the subject. So you can use that to help build a profile of people. That's called, I think, SMS conversation. And it's quite interesting.
So we've got a couple more minutes, so I'm going to try and squeeze in a couple from the chat. I think this one should be a quick one. So it's if using tokens, if we don't have the data in the contact record, will it just display blank? So is it important to ensure we have the data before using the tokens?
Yes, obviously you can't you can't fill out a token with something that isn't there. So you've got to have you've got to have that data available to people. So if you're using first name, pretty confident that's going to be there. Yeah, you need to consider whether that's going to be there.
I suppose if you've got people on a mailing list and most of the time you're using tokens, then it's going to be first name, maybe last name, but most of the time just first name these days, maybe email. It's going to be things that you should have if they're on the mailing list, I would have thought. But
yeah, there is a solution for that for advanced users. It's called a Smarty. So you can put if conditions. So for example, you might not have first name available in your database because your newsletter sign up is only asking for email address. So in those scenarios, you can put Smarties, a bit of code to say use first name token, if empty, use supporter, for example. So there are Smarty options available, but they are really for advanced users.
Okay. Well, thanks, Anil. So we are out of time. So there were some more questions. We will follow up on those. Just to go over very quickly some next steps. If I can not have tech issues this time, that would be fantastic. So next step, so yeah, you can have a play and test things for yourself on the Civi 360 demo site. So there is the link. Feel free to go, play around, try out some of the things. If you don't have Mosaico installed, you can give it a go on there. And then if you are a client of ours, let us know and we can get that installed for you fairly quickly. If you'd like to book a training workshop or schedule a discovery session to go into your kind of mailing and automation in more in depth, or really kind of any other Civi topics, but do get in touch. You can contact us using the client services at circleinteractive.co.uk email address. But yeah, I think that is everything for today. So thank you for coming along to the webinar. Hope you got something out of it. And enjoy the rest of your day. And
maybe we'll just say, there were a couple of questions we didn't get to. We'll try to answer those in a follow-up email. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.